Karen, my HOA neighbor, decided she could ban my dog, even though he's a certified police K9. She went all out, complaints, false reports, even calling the cops, and when that didn't work, she snuck into my yard in the middle of the night to set him loose. But what she didn't know, I had cameras, the law on my side, and an entire neighborhood ready to tear her apart. And just wait until you hear how satisfying it was when justice finally caught up with her. I always knew HOA neighborhoods came with some level of drama, but nothing could have prepared me for Karen. When I moved in a few months ago, I had one goal: a quiet life. No loud neighbors, no drama. Just me, my dog Duke, and a place to finally breathe. The neighborhood seemed perfect. Clean streets, well-kept lawns, a nice park nearby. But what I didn't know was that behind all that suburban perfection lurked a power-hungry HOA tyrant who had nothing better to do than make everyone's lives a living hell. Enter Karen. Now, you probably think you know the type. The kind of woman who takes HOA rules as seriously as federal law. The kind who writes violation notices at 6 a.m. sharp and measures grass height with a ruler. The kind who watches her neighbors through her blinds like some suburban cryptid, waiting, just waiting, for someone to leave their trash cans out a second too long. Yeah, that's Karen. Within 2 weeks of moving in, I had already heard the horror stories. She once fined a guy for having the wrong shade of blue on his shutters. Another neighbor got written up for having overly aggressive Halloween decorations. And when the Smith kids next door had a birthday party with a bouncy castle, she actually called the cops. Their crime? Excessive laughter. At first, I thought I could just keep my head down and avoid her. Follow the rules, don't engage, live my life. That illusion lasted exactly 14 days. And then she saw Duke. Now, let me tell you about Duke. Duke isn't just a dog, he's a force of nature. A German shepherd with the build of a small horse and the intelligence to match. His coat is sleek, his stance is alert, and his eyes? Sharp as hell. The kind of eyes that make people straighten up and rethink their life choices. But despite his intimidating appearance, Duke is highly trained. He's not some backyard menace barking at every car that passes by. He's disciplined, focused, and honestly, better behaved than most people I know. Karen didn't see that. The first time she laid eyes on him, she physically recoiled like she had just stumbled into a crime scene. Her nose wrinkled, her lips curled in disgust, and I swear, for a second, she looked like she might start hissing. Then she zeroed in on me, her arms crossing so tightly over her chest that I was surprised she didn't snap in half. "You need to get rid of that thing," she snapped, her voice dripping with the same level of disgust someone might use if they found a rat in their kitchen. I blinked. What?" She jabbed a finger at Duke. "That breed is illegal in this neighborhood. HOA doesn't allow aggressive dogs." For a second, I thought she was joking. Then I realized she was dead serious. I actually laughed out loud, not just because what she was saying was ridiculous, but because the sheer confidence with which she was spewing this nonsense was almost impressive. "Duke's not aggressive," I said, still chuckling. "He's trained." Her scowl deepened. "Doesn't matter. He's illegal. HOA rules." Now, I knew my HOA had a lot of stupid rules, but banning dogs, that seemed extreme. "Where exactly in the HOA handbook does it say that?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She didn't even hesitate. "Page 17, Section 4, no aggressive breeds allowed." The way she said it, so smug and rehearsed, told me she had probably memorized the entire handbook. I shook my head. "Duke's not aggressive. He's actually a retired police K9. For a split second, her expression flickered, like she was processing that information, like she almost hesitated. Then, just as quickly, she scoffed. "Yeah, right. You probably just printed out a fake certificate from the internet." I was starting to get angry. "I'm serious. He's a trained service animal, legally protected. You can't just..." She cut me off with a wave of her hand, like she was swatting away an annoying fly. "HOA rules override whatever fake police dog story you've got." And with that, she turned on her heel and strutted away like she had just won a battle. I stood there, completely stunned. This woman actually thought she could ban my dog. It would have been funny if it wasn't so unbelievably infuriating. Then, the next morning, I stepped outside and saw it. An official-looking notice, taped to my front door at perfect eye level, the paper crisp, the lettering bold and aggressive. "Remove your dog immediately. HOA restricts dangerous breeds. Failure to comply will result in legal action. My blood boiled. What the actual hell? I did not even realize how hard I was gripping the violation notice until I was halfway across the street, marching straight toward Karen's house. My knuckles were white, my jaw clenched so tight it could probably cut glass, and the crumpled paper in my fist? It was seconds away from being reduced to dust. My brain was running on pure, undiluted rage. I barely registered my own footsteps, the neat suburban houses blurring past, the pristine, cookie-cutter nightmare of this HOA-controlled neighborhood closing in around me, the wide, spotless sidewalks, the perfectly manicured lawns, the fake smiles from the neighbors who all pretended to like each other but secretly despised anyone who didn't follow their rigid, ridiculous rules. This place had seemed perfect when I first moved in. A fresh start, a quiet life, somewhere I could finally relax. I should have known it was too good to be true, because this wasn't just a nice neighborhood, it was a kingdom, and at the very top of its twisted little hierarchy sat Karen. Now, I'd dealt with my fair share of terrible neighbors before, loud ones, nosy ones, the kind who never pick up after their dogs or think it's okay to mow their lawn at 6 in the damn morning. But Karen was in a league of her own. She was the self-appointed enforcer of all things HOA, the kind of woman who took the rules more seriously than actual laws, the kind who patrolled the neighborhood like some kind of suburban dictator, just waiting for someone to step out of line. And God help you if you did. She had written dozens of violation notices since I moved in, for the most ridiculous things. Some guy got a fine because his trash can lid wasn't completely closed. Another family had been written up for having an inflatable pool in their backyard. One guy, he got threatened with legal action because his fence was painted the wrong shade of white. And now, apparently, she had decided that my dog was next. I stormed up to her way too perfect for this world porch and pounded on the door with enough force to make the windows rattle. Bam, bam, bam. I knew she was home. Karen was always home. She had nothing better to do. No job, no hobbies, just HOA meetings and making other people's lives miserable. And sure enough, 5 seconds later, the door swung open. And there she was, standing there with that smug, condescending smirk, like she had been waiting for this, like she thought she had already won. I barely let her speak before I shoved the crumpled paper in her face. "Are you kidding me?" I snapped. "You don't have the authority to ban my dog." Karen didn't even blink. She just tilted her head, arms crossing over her chest, like some kind of HOA overlord, looking at me like I was a bug she had just stepped on. "Oh, but the HOA does," she said, her voice slow and syrupy, dripping with mocking superiority. I swear to God I saw red. I had dealt with actual criminals before, people who posed a real threat, people who were dangerous, unpredictable, truly dangerous. Karen? She wasn't dangerous. She was entitled, and I wasn't about to let her dictate my life. I forced myself to take a slow, deep breath through my nose. "Karen," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Duke isn't just any dog. He's a certified police canine." For a second, just a second, her smirk faltered, like her brain had short-circuited for half a second, like she had just realized she might have seriously overstepped. But then, she recovered. And then she laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not even a confused one, a smug, dismissive, mocking laugh, like she genuinely thought I was making it up. "Nice try," she said, waving a hand like I was nothing more than an annoying little pest. "You probably just printed out a fake certificate from the internet." I felt my fingernails dig into my palm. This woman had no idea what she was talking about. "He's a retired service dog," I said through gritted teeth, forcing my hands to stay at my sides before I did something that would get me arrested. "Trained in detection, protection, and de-escalation. He's safer than any damn dog in this neighborhood." And that wasn't an exaggeration. Duke could sniff out drugs, track suspects, and take down a fully grown man in under 3 seconds. Hell, he had probably saved more people than Karen had ever even spoken to. But she just rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them, like I had just told her my goldfish was a trained FBI informant. "HOA rules override whatever fake police dog story you've got," she said in that same condescending tone. "You have a week to get rid of him." A week, like I was supposed to just throw away a member of my family because she decided he didn't fit the aesthetic. I swear, For a second, my vision went blurry. The sheer entitlement, the audacity, the fact that she thought she had this kind of power over me, over my dog, over anyone. I wanted to punch a hole through her perfect little HOA-approved lawn gnome. Instead, I forced myself to breathe. Because I had a better idea. Let her dig her own grave. I didn't need to win this fight right now. I just needed her to think she had won. So I did something that probably threw her off more than yelling would have. I smirked. I saw the flicker of confusion in her eyes. Brief, but there. Like she had expected me to keep arguing, to lose my temper, to give her more fuel. Instead, I just took a slow step back, my lips curling into a smile. "Okay, Karen," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "We'll see about that." Then I turned and walked away, because what she didn't know, the law was on my side, and she had just made the biggest mistake of her HOA dictator life. I knew Karen was unhinged, but I underestimated just how far she was willing to go. At first, I thought she'd just keep running her mouth, maybe send a few more passive-aggressive letters, or, worst-case scenario, try to find me into submission. But no, Karen didn't just double down. She went full psycho. It started small, just little things here and there. Dirty looks, exaggerated sighs whenever she saw me walking Duke. Fake gasps when he so much as existed within 100 feet of her. Typical Karen behavior. But then the reports started. I wasn't even surprised when I got a formal complaint from the HOA board, citing unauthorized pet ownership and harboring a dangerous animal. She actually used the word harboring, like I was running an underground dogfighting ring. Then came animal control. Some poor guy in a city truck rolled up to my house, clipboard in hand, looking exhausted before he even stepped out. I could already tell he'd dealt with Karen before. He climbed out of the truck with a groan, rubbing the back of his neck, like this was the last place he wanted to be. "Hey," he said, barely glancing up from his paperwork, "we got a report about an aggressive dog?" I didn't even say anything, just pointed at Duke, who was sitting perfectly still on the porch, ears perked, watching the guy with calm curiosity. The animal control officer took one look at Duke, one single look, and laughed. "Jesus," he muttered, shaking his head. "Let me guess, HOA complaint?" I nodded. He sighed, scribbled something on his clipboard, and said, "Yeah, this is bullshit. You're good. Have a nice day." And just like that, he was gone. But Karen wasn't done. Oh no. Because after animal control didn't work, she tried the cops. That was her next brilliant move. She actually called the police on me, and the absolute best part, when the officers arrived, Duke recognized them. Turns out, some of the local cops had worked with him before, back when he was still on duty. The second they stepped onto my driveway, Duke's tail started wagging, and one of them actually grinned and scratched behind his ears. Karen had called the cops, and instead of arresting me, they were out here reminiscing about my dog. "Damn, I haven't seen this boy in a while," one of them said, kneeling down to rub Duke's head. "Didn't know he retired? He's still sharp?" "Sharp as ever," I said, crossing my arms and throwing Karen the smuggest look I could muster. The cops didn't even bother pretending to take her seriously. They left after 5 minutes, telling me to call them if she tried anything else. I thought that was the end of it. I hoped that was the end of it. I was dead wrong. Because a few nights later, she took it to a whole new level. I got home late that night, pulling into my driveway, barely thinking about anything except getting inside and passing out. But the second I stepped out of my truck, I knew something was off. Duke was at the back door, pacing. Ears up, body tense, tail low. That wasn't normal. Duke didn't get agitated easily. I felt something cold slither down my spine as I moved toward the backyard, my gut telling me I wasn't going to like what I saw. And I was right. The gate to my fenced yard, wide, fucking open. I stopped dead in my tracks, heart hammering in my chest. I always latched that gate. Always. And Duke? Duke wasn't the kind of dog who'd just push it open and wander off. He was trained. He knew his boundaries. He wouldn't have gone anywhere unless someone had tried to let him out. I swallowed hard, my hands clenching into fists as I turned back toward the house, my pulse pounding in my ears. I had security cameras, and suddenly, I was desperate to check the footage. I pulled out my phone, opened the security app, and rewound the footage from my backyard camera. And there she was. Karen. At 2:37 a.m., sneaking into my yard, reaching over the fence and unlatching the gate. I stared at the screen, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. She had tried to let Duke loose, tried to get him to run. Maybe she thought he'd get hit by a car. Maybe she thought animal control would finally come and take him away. Maybe she didn't think at all. I didn't know, but in that moment, I didn't care, because all I could see was red. This wasn't just some HOA dispute anymore. This wasn't a stupid fine or a noise complaint or a Karen with too much time on her hands. This was criminal. This was trespassing. This was malicious. This was her trying to hurt my dog. And that was the last fucking straw. I clenched my jaw so hard, my teeth ached. My vision blurred around the edges as I took a slow, deep breath, my hands shaking from the sheer rage flooding my system. I wasn't the kind of person to lash out. I wasn't reckless. But this woman, she had just crossed a line, and she had no idea what was coming. I didn't waste a single second. The moment I saw Karen on my security footage, sneaking into my yard at 2:30 a.m. and unlatching the gate to let Duke loose, I got to work. My hands were shaking from pure rage as I compiled all the evidence, multiple camera angles, timestamps, the whole damn package. I made sure to include a clear, factual summary explaining exactly what she had done. No exaggeration, no unnecessary fluff. Just cold, hard proof that she had trespassed onto my property with the clear intent of getting rid of my dog. Then I hit send, first to the HOA board, then to the police. And because I wanted to make sure everyone saw it, I sent it to the entire neighborhood group chat. The response was glorious. My phone exploded with notifications. At first, the usual confused reactions poured in. Wait, what? And is this real? But within minutes, the tone shifted. The messages became angry. People were pissed. Even the most HOA-obsessed, rule-following neighbors turned on her. No one, not even the usual Karen supporters, could justify this level of insanity. The chat flooded with outrage. She could have gotten that poor dog killed. This is beyond HOA drama. This is criminal. She trespassed on his property? We need an emergency HOA meeting, now. And just like that, Karen was screwed. The HOA board had no choice but to act. When half the neighborhood is screaming for someone's head, you can't exactly ignore it. They called an emergency meeting the very next evening, and I made sure to be there. With Duke. As I walked in, my dog at my side, Karen was already seated at the long HOA board table. She looked like she was trying to keep her composure, but her face was tense, pale, and stiff, like she already knew she had lost. The meeting started, and I didn't even have to say a word. The neighborhood did the job for me. People tore into her one after another. "I cannot believe this," one woman snapped. "She could have gotten him killed. What if the dog ran into the street?" "She's been harassing him for weeks," another neighbor added. "First the fake violations, now this? It's disgusting." "Trespassing. This is trespassing," someone else pointed out. "She went into his yard. She should be arrested." In a nutshell. Even the HOA president, who had always been way too friendly with Karen, looked absolutely done with her. He kept rubbing his temples like he had a migraine and didn't want to deal with this level of insanity. For 30 straight minutes, Karen got roasted alive. And then, finally, she tried to defend herself. I was just checking if the dog was locked up properly," she stammered. "For safety reasons." "Oh, hell no." I actually laughed out loud. Not out of amusement, but out of sheer disbelief at the amount of bullshit she was spewing. "Oh yeah?" I said, crossing my arms. "At 2:30 in the morning, with no flashlight, no phone, just sneaking into my yard like a criminal?" She opened and closed her mouth, but no words came out, because there was no defense. The HOA president sighed, looking exhausted. "Karen, we've reviewed the footage. There's no excuse for this." His voice was final. She knew it. And then came the best part. She got slapped with trespassing charges. And, my personal favorite, she was removed from the HOA board. For the first time since I'd moved into this hellhole of a neighborhood, the HOA board actually did something useful. The second they announced that Karen was officially out, I swear, a few people in the room actually clapped. And if you thought that was the sweetest victory, just wait. Because, as it turns out, the HOA did have a rule about dogs. But it wasn't about banning them. It was about respecting certified service animals. Yeah, that's right. Karen had been throwing around HOA rules like they were the Ten Commandments, acting like she was some all-knowing dictator who had the power to tell me what I could and couldn't do, and she didn't even know the actual rules. The irony was so perfect, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. The next morning, I made sure to take the longest, most casual walk around the neighborhood with Duke, just to make sure everyone saw us. And every time we passed Karen's house, she practically disintegrated. She wouldn't even look at me, just stood frozen in her yard, fists clenched at her sides, her jaw tight as she tried to pretend we didn't exist. I, on the other hand, I made damn sure to give Duke extra head pats, loudly, because in the end, justice had been served,